we should do the movie, real fighting. I mean, real fighting is not like movie. The real fighting is not like cartoon fighting. Why I make like a City Hunter? Because everybody know I can fight, and everybody know how what I'm doing all those years. Then I just want to get into some other character. It's like a City Hunter. The character is more cartoon. No matter fighting, against the TV game. And so this is why I want to change a bit my personality for different movies. So this is why even a fight of Gary Daniel is not quite serious, just these kind of things. It's a bit fun, and I like to change every movie. I don't just sometimes just tired of this fight. I want to change some movie, cartoon. Suppose I want to do, if I have to change again, I want to reshoot again, City Hunter, and I want to do the City Hunter Part 2. And that's what I want to do. First time when I work with Rich Norton, and I find out he really like us. He's not like some other America fighter. Some really can fight, but they cannot do somersault. They can do somersault, they cannot fight. They can fight, do somersault, they cannot act. But everything little bit. And when I see Richard Norton, he can act. He can do comedy. He can do serious. And when he fighting, he know the rhythm. The rhythm is for us is a very important. I find with a lot of people, they really can fight. Boom, boom, bang, 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 bang. What we want is and he know the rhythm, and he know the timing, and also he don't mind. I beat him. A lot of people know I'm the master, you cannot touch me. No, he knows movie. That's very important. So this is why after one movie we finish, I find out he's great. And so when we have a chance, then we call up again, then they come out again. And last year, and also he act under a nice guy, also, and Richard Norton. I like to work with the people who knows what I'm doing. Some other people I tried before, what's that? That's ridiculous. After one punch, I should knock you down. How can you get up? Makes my punch no power. I said, no, you knock me down, the whole movie gone. I have to get up to fight you again. No, how can you fight me again? It just makes me, I have to explain a lot of things. I have to show him some movie, later. But now, even he understand when the block the hand, and he give me a punch, that really hurts me. That's movie. That's not on the stage fighting. Movie, you have to show the power, but doesn't hurt. Of course, we do touch. Bam! It's not bam. So this is why I like Rich Norton.
Well, I started when I was 8 years old. I'd actually saw a trailer for a Bruce Lee movie. It was Enter the Dragon. I couldn't see the actual movie at the time because it was X-rated, but I did see a trailer for a Bruce Lee movie. And before that, I was kind of enamored with the world of comic book heroes. The Captain America's, Marvel heroes. And it's like when I saw Bruce Lee on the screen, it was like, this is the nearest thing to a real-life superhero. This guy kicks butt, man. It's like unbelievable. So that's right there. I was taken, and that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life when I saw Bruce Lee. So the next week I went out and got in a Kung Fu school, Hayes Kung Fu Club. And I trained with a guy called Jim Russell for about 4 years. And I mean, he wasn't big in giving out belts. I only got to like a green belt in all that time, but it was a good grounding for me. But then I got into Taekwondo because I really liked the flashy kicks. I was really flexible when I was doing the Kung Fu. So when I found an art that really utilized the kicks and the flexibility, I went into Taekwondo. And I got my black belt by the time I was 15, I think, before I was 16. And then I was teaching in 3 schools in London. And then I got into kickboxing. I kind of moved away from the Taekwondo. I actually got disqualified from like 2 or 3 Taekwondo tournaments for knocking the guy out. So I looked up this guy called Mickey Byrne, who was training a lot of boxers at the time, and I asked him to train me because I wanted to get into PKA, the Professional Kickboxing Association. And Mickey's training was just so unbelievably different than the traditional martial arts training, because Mickey had been a boxing champ in the British Army. He was a PTI in the British Army, physical training instructor, and he'd actually been in the SAS for 2 years. And so this guy was just an unbelievable coach. I mean, he just knew the human body. And I watched him train these boxers at this gym in Brunel University where I used to go train. And I say, man, that's training, you know, you see the pad work, the body conditioning and everything. So I kind of slipped away from the Taekwondo and went to train with this guy. So he pretty much was in charge of me while I was kickboxing PKA in England. And we developed a very close relationship, and we're still in touch today, even though he lives in New Zealand and I'm living in the States. We're still in touch. He's kind of like a second dad to me. He took me on. And so he gave me the most unbelievable training, and I went into the kickboxing for 3 years, and it was very unpopular at that time. PKA had just started in England, so it was very hard to get fights, and there was really no money in it back then. And the rumors were, if you go to the States, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars involved in kickboxing over there. So I was like, that's where I'm going, man. I'm good enough. I'm going to make the money. So I talked to George Safetis, who was the promoter. He used to promote with the fights for the PKA back then. And I talked to him about going to America, and he's like, well, how much money do you have? And I'm like, well, I've probably got about 200, about 100 quid or 200 pounds or something. He said, well, you don't want to go to California right away. It's too expensive. It's a bit of a harder life. I would recommend you go to Florida, because he would take fighters all over, all over America. So I ended up flying to Florida on a standby ticket. And it's like I got there and I really didn't know anybody, and it took me a little while to get settled in. And then I hooked up with a karate instructor there called John Graydon. And I was training and teaching at the St. Petersburg Junior College, and I wanted to get, like I said, I went there to get involved in the kickboxing, but it's a totally different game in America. England's really small. You can pretty much get from one end of England to the other in a day on the train or whatever, so it was easy to get to fights. You didn't need money. But in America, you'll have one fight in California 1 month, and then it's in New York, then it's up in San Francisco, and you've got to be rich just to travel. I mean, America's huge compared to England, if I don't know if people really know about that. So the kickboxing kind of got put on hold, and I was training with these guys, and they were doing point karate there. So I started going into a couple of these point karate tournaments, and it just wasn't me. I mean, point karate, it's like you get tapped and there's a point and you don't even know you've got hit. So it was a totally different game for me. But I kept training with them, and I was teaching there with them, and then I got involved with a guy called Mark Russo, who was a student of Stephen Hayes's in ninjutsu in America, which is something that I'd really looked down on for a long time. I used to see these guys in camouflage outfits running around in the woods training in martial arts, and I thought it was a joke until I started training with them. And those guys are good. I was really, really impressed with the stuff they do. And trained with Stephen Hayes for a while, and with Mark, and did that for like a year. And that was before I went off to the Philippines to do movies in the Philippines. And I played around. I trained with a few Eskrima guys there and Kali guys, but I never got super serious into it. It wasn't until I came back to the States and I moved to LA that I started trying to get back into kickboxing again. I trained at the Jet Center with Benny Akides. I trained there for just over a year, and I was training with Peter Cunningham and Stan the Man Longanidis and all the top kickboxing guys there. So I fought in a World Kickboxing Association light heavyweight title, and I won a light heavyweight title. That was my short stint back into competing in kickboxing, but unfortunately, because I was doing movies, it was really hard to just settle into the training. I couldn't really plan my year, because doing the movies, you have to go away for a couple of months, and then you come back, then you're gone again for a couple of months. So it was really hard to get seriously back into the kickboxing training. So that was my short stint back in kickboxing. But then right after I moved to California, I'd met this guy called Winston Omega, who's a Chinese Malaysian. And his style is called Siulam Wong Kar Kyun. It basically means Shaolin Wong Family Fist. And this guy, I'd met him through a friend, and we went to a restaurant. We were just talking martial arts. He's a lot older than me, this guy. A small Chinese guy, very similar in stature to Bruce Lee. Not the same kind of physique, but this guy is the most unbelievable martial artist I'd ever met in my life. We went to his car, and he had this bag in the back of his car, like a heavy bag, about this big, and he says, lift up the bag for me. So I'm like this, and I go, I couldn't move this damn thing, and it weighed 300 pounds. It's full of steel balls, and this is what he used as a heavy bag. And he demonstrated to me some technique, and he went up to a lamppost. I mean, a big lamppost in outside this restaurant in LA, and he goes, whack, and he hits the bottom of this lamppost, and the whole thing went, and I was like, shit. And I started training with the Sifu Omega at that point, and this was like 8-9 years ago, and I've never stopped training with him since. And he's the most amazing martial artist I've ever met. I mean, he's just so good, he's so fast, he's so powerful. He now has a 1,000-pound bag. He was in LA, but 2 years ago he moved back to Malaysia, so I was in Penang in Malaysia, his school this year. And all he trains on is iron. He actually, you know the wooden dummy, the mukjong, he actually had one made for me, welded. It weighs 1,800 pounds. So my mukjong is 1,800 pounds, the one I have in my garage. And I have a 500-pound bag, which is just full of steel shot. And I have a 250-pound bag. And this is what we use for working out on. And he's really big in conditioning of the hands, the bones in your hand, striking with all different parts of the hand, and the bones in the forearm and the shins. And so that's the kind of equipment we train on. And he's the most phenomenal martial artist. In the last 8 years, I've learned so much from him. Very different than the traditional taekwondo and kickboxing. His style is unbelievable. So I've been very fortunate to have some really, really good teachers in my lifetime. But also when you're doing movies, you get to travel around the world. You get to meet a lot of different martial artists, because a lot of martial artists come to the movie sets, and you work with different choreographers, different martial artists. And so even though you train in these different systems, you're also learning from all over, from everybody. So I'm a huge believer in Bruce Lee's philosophies. I mean, when I first got into Bruce Lee, it was basically because you see him on the movies and you love the physicalities. But then you realize there's so much more to Bruce Lee with his philosophies and his teachings. And it's a lot of those that have guided me through my training. And so it's not so much when somebody says to you, what style do you practice? You really hate the word style. You really want to get away from that word style and the confines of what the word styles represent. And basically, you just train a lot of different things, and you find stuff that works for you, and you develop your own way of fighting, and you don't need to give it a name. You just do what you do. A small part on Miami Vice. Did some commercials down there. Did some what they call industrials, where you're doing little industrial movies to promote products and stuff for in-house companies. But yeah, I did a small part in Miami Vice. I did a little bit in the movie Cocoon, and most of it got cut out. But I was actually working in a nightclub at the time. That's how I got to be in that one. But the Florida thing wasn't really happening. It was really tough having an English accent. Everyone used to tell me that I looked all American, but as soon as I opened my mouth, with the British accent, it was really killing me. It was really hard to get work down there. And then I got invited to the Philippines by this director. I can't even remember his name, don't ask me his name. But I was like, great. I saved up money, flew myself over to the Philippines. He said, you do martial arts, you got a good physique. I can give you lead roles in the Philippines. So with my naivety, I just took off and flew to the Philippines, saved up enough money for a ticket. But when I got there, the guy started introducing me to a few people and taking me out. But it turns out that he thought I was like some rich American that was going to give him money to make movies. And I wasn't rich. I wasn't rich, and I wasn't American. So he kind of just abandoned me, stopped answering my phone calls and this and that. So I thought, well, I could just go back to the States, but I'm here, so I might as well try and make a go of it. So I went around myself meeting different movie companies. And I actually met this guy who was a kickboxer, and I was training with him for a while over there. And we went to this kickboxing tournament in this province called Cavite. And I was spotted by what they call a talent scout over there. And it was a guy, I was in a tank top at this kickboxing tournament, and I was a little bit pumped at the time. And he took me to meet this producer called Wilson Chiang, who had a company called Solar Films. They were a big Chinese family, very wealthy, and they made movies. They had a company called Solar Films. So Wilson asked me to do a demo for him. So he went to a gym that afternoon, and I just did a demo, and the next day he signed me up to do 6 pictures. He gave me a 2-year contract to do 6 pictures. They put me up in my own apartment. I had maids, I had a driver, and I was like, yeah, I've arrived. Here I am. But, they do what they call international movies over there. It's like I was considered their import star and all this and that. But the movies were pretty, I thought after making the first one, Final Reprisal, I thought, this is it. I've arrived. I've done a lead. I've made it. Hollywood's going to be calling. But I was very naive. And it was a fun little picture. I really enjoyed making it. But obviously, it had a big theatrical release in the Philippines, and I know it's sold on video around the world, but it's not really. When I look at it now, it's like, oh my god, that's me. I actually did 2 movies for him. I did The Final Reprisal and then a movie called King Mahis Island. And that was it, because then he started wanting me to do like soft porn movies and stuff. So I said, forget this, I'm out of here. So I left, and after spending almost 2 years there, I went back to the States, moved back to LA. I've been a fan of Jackie Chan since I was a kid. I mean, since the really early days of Drunken Master, Fearless Hyena, Snake in the Eagle Shadow. And even when I was living in England as a kid, I would write letters and send them to Golden Harvest saying, I used to write letters to everybody, London Weekend Television, BBC, you name it. But I always used to regularly sent letters to Golden Harvest saying, hi, I do martial arts, blah, 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 I'd love to work on Jackie Chan movies. And you always get these very, very polite letters back saying, thank you for your letter, very nice of you to write, but, you know, we don't need your type right now. And I just landed a part in a movie called Knights, which was being directed by Albert Pyun. It had Chris Christopherson, Lance Henriksen, Kathy Long, the kickboxing girl, was in it. And I was actually flying out to Utah from LA to shoot Knights. And we stopped in like Salt Lake City, and I was paged over the system at Salt Lake City airport. And I'm like, who the hell's calling me here? And it turns out Golden Harvest had just called and offered me the part in City Hunter. But they actually needed me in Japan because we were shooting on a cruise liner. They needed me in Japan on this certain date so I could be on the ship when it left port. But I still had 2 weeks more to do on Knights. So from my flight from Salt Lake City to actual Utah, I was in this massive dilemma. So when I got there, I spoke to Albert Pyun and I said to him, look, you know who Jackie Chan is? Because he hadn't made it in the States at that time. And he says, yeah, of course I know who he is. And I said, well, I've been offered a part to play a bad guy in his movie. And he's like, damn, you got to go do that, man. It'd be a great experience. I said, yeah, I'd love to do it, but... Then I explained to him the scheduling problem. And Albert was like, well, let me see what I can do. So like a week later, he come back and he said, look, I've rearranged the schedule. I've had to cut maybe 1 or 2 of your scenes out of Nights. We'll shoot some of your stuff with a veil so that we can double you when you're gone if you need, but hey, you can go. So I was like, wow, Albert, you're my hero. So that's how it turned out. I actually arrived in Japan like a day or 2 late, but it worked out beneficial for me because originally the opening scene they'd planned for me was just walking onto the boat with Richard Norton and a couple of the other bad guys.
I'm sorry.
But because I missed that scene, I got my own opening scene. They devised this whole training scene of me in the bedroom on my own as my introductory scene in the movie, and that turned out very good for me. So yeah, I was, it was like a dream come true for me to go do City Hunter. They were on a schedule. They had a lot to do in that short period of time for the exteriors of the ship while we were in Japan. Jackie was very friendly, as were most of the crew. They were pretty cool, but you could tell they were under the gun as to what they had to get shot in the almost 2 weeks that we were on that cruise liner. So there wasn't a lot of time for socializing. We would work pretty long hours. When Jackie's working, he's really intense. He really is intense. But the first time I actually got to work with him on that opening scene that I was talking about, Jackie actually choreographed my stuff for me. He shot it, got behind the camera and shot it, and I could see him just buzzing, creating, thinking all the time, really working hard. One of my best memories was the night when we shot our first fight scene together, because when we were choreographing it, he would take me outside and work on the choreography. And for some reason that night, he was in a fantastic mood. And he just rapped, talked to me all night about when he started in the business, how his career went, what it was like when he first had fame, when he first started getting money, and about all the power he had. But I saw different sides. I saw him very, very serious on the set. Just like any other human being. He's pretty hot and cold. I found that one day he'd be so talkative and just want to be your best buddy, and then on other days he's just really cold and just so into the work. And that's just how he is. And I got every respect for him because I think he is one of the best movie martial artists we've ever seen outside of Bruce Lee. I think he really is one of the best we've seen. And he's very, very entertaining. He's very successful. And I really like the Hong Kong directors because they bring different unexpected elements to their movies. Whereas I find a lot of the Hollywood directors maybe it's not just the directors, maybe just the Hollywood mentality from the studios or whatever, is a lot of times when I'm watching an American movie, you can almost predict what's going to happen. You can almost second guess it because you've seen it time and time again. They're very into formulas, and that's why sequels are so popular over there, because formulas work. If it works, we'll do it again and again, and you want to keep making money. But when you're watching a Hong Kong movie, there's often stuff in there that just, where did that scene come from? The directors just inject something of their own personality, and it's just stuff you would never expect to see in the movie. And I love that. I like that, not knowing what you're going to see. Wong Jing's just a really weird, weird character. He's the kind of guy you enjoy being around. He has a really good fun energy on the set. He's pretty much yin and yang, you know. Jackie's intensity, and then Wong Jing was the relaxed, funny, always funny on the set, always joking around with people. You know, when we did City Hunter, we never had a script. It was very hard to figure out what his interpretation of the movie was. And to be honest with you, while I was shooting, I had such a basic outline of this movie. Terrorists on a ship, kidnap a girl, Jackie saves them. That was pretty much all I knew about it. There was no script, so it's very hard to develop any kind of character, any background for your character, because there's no script. Right before the scenes, they will give me some dialogue, and you just do the best you can. Basically, I played it just like a stereotypical bad guy that I've seen in many, many Chinese movies, because the acting style over there is so different. It's so OTT, the acting, very, very over the top, you know. In America, less is best. It's about being subtle. But in Hong Kong, it's very over the top and very dramatic. And often Wong Jing really wouldn't give us any direction, because maybe it was because his English wasn't so good, but we would always be passed. It wasn't even direction through the ADs. They would just basically give me a piece of paper, and this is your dialogue, and that's what you're going to do right now. Okay. And then sometimes I would be acting with a Chinese guy who would be speaking in Chinese, and I'm just listening for some kind of tagline that I can, when I'm supposed to come in and respond. It was very interesting though, because when the action was being shot, Wong Jing would pretty much just leave the set or go to sleep. He wasn't around. The action was left up to Jackie or Chen Dong or any of the guys that were there that were handling the action choreography. RG was another guy. So I don't know about how would you interpret Wong Jing's interpretation? Very different, out there, off the wall. Anyone who knows his movies now will know, you know. I was so excited to do my very first action scene over there, which was the opening training scene of the movie. That was one of the hardest scenes I ever shot in my life, because they do so many takes on things. I don't know if you remember when I was going down in the splits and all that, and I had to do it really, really, really slowly, and they actually put my feet on like this wax paper so I could slide out really slowly, controlled. You know, it's okay doing the splits, but when you have to do it 20 times, then after that I still had to do like the jumping kicks off of the couch and this and that, and my legs were like jelly. And I came out like totally physically drained. I was like limping out of the room. I got blisters on my feet from doing it so many times. It's like when they ask you to kick in front of the camera. Okay, simple kick, I just got to kick, my foot's got to go in front of the camera. But they want it millimeter perfect. So it's like, I do this take 20 times. Just a simple round kick in front of the camera. And I went over to Wong Jing and I said, Wong Jing, am I that bad? I have to do it so many times. He said, what are you talking about? Jackie does it 100 takes sometimes. When we want it right, we want it perfect. It was a great time for me to go to Hong Kong and work with Jackie Chan, because it was early in my career. And to me, it was like going to school and learning how action movies really should be shot, how fight scenes really should be shot.
When you come out, too slow.
You want me to move that?
In the States, they're great when it comes to shooting all the helicopters and car crashes and explosions. But when it comes to actually the physical action, the fights and everything, nobody beats the Chinese. And in China, in Hong Kong, Jack is the tops. His group are the tops. So it was wonderful for me to go on the set every day and just watch how they work. And I learned an awful lot. I learned some things I didn't want to learn, but you're growing up watching these guys, you see them do all these amazing moves, and it's like, wow, it's unbelievable, some of these kicks and the way they climb and this and climb that. And due to my naivety, once again, I didn't realize the use of wires. And I was like, oh, that's how they do it. So that kind of took away a little bit of my I don't want to say my respect for those guys, but some of the awe that you have for the stuff that they do, it kind of took it away a little bit. Still tremendous athletes, still the best choreography, still the best sense of timing, the best sense of rhythm, the best sense of editing and of story drama that I've ever seen. I mean, I'd never seen this before, but they'd set up like these big RSJs in the ceiling, big metal beams that would spin around with wires coming down, so you could do all this amazing wire gags. And I'd look at the set, and like I said, it was more like a construction site than a movie set sometimes. It's amazing the lengths they go to get exactly what they want on film. A lot of my friends had warned me, you're going to work with Jackie Chan, make sure you come back alive. So I joked about that with Jackie. And he said, no. He said, too many people have been hurt and died in my movies. Safety, safety, safety first. This is something he made a point of saying at the beginning of the movie. When we were shooting on that cruise liner in Japan, they had an in-house video system. And because Jackie was on the ship, they would show Jackie Chan movies every night. And I'd sit sometimes with Wong Jing and Jigo. I became very good friends with Jigo Lee, the cameraman, and we'd sit together and you hear them talking about, oh, you remember when that guy broke his arm? Oh, you remember that guy's hip got put out? Oh, you remember these guys when they smashed their head on the ground? And you'll go, like nearly every movie they're talking about, oh, you remember when somebody got maimed? So, no, I was very fortunate. They were pretty safety conscious, and I didn't see too many accidents. I know Jackie actually broke his ankle during that skateboard scene. He actually broke his ankle, and we were all off for 3 weeks. Apparently the scene in Police Story, the original Police Story, when this bus has got the bad guys in and it's coming down the hill, and Jackie comes out in the road and points a gun at the guys at the bus, and the bus is to stop, right? And there's a car behind Jackie that is prepared for these two guys that are going to fall out of the top of the bus. They come through the window, and they were supposed to fall on the car. But the bus driver was too scared of hitting Jackie, so he stopped too early, and these guys came out and 2 floors down, straight on their heads onto the concrete. A lot of the movies I do the choreography, and obviously you have your own ideas and this and that, but when you work with the Chinese, you don't say anything. You just back off and they do it. When they were doing this flip onto the bed with Jackie, and they were wondering what they should do with me, and I said, well, why don't I do like a backflip here? Because I could do back, handsprings or back tucks or something, and then come up in a fighting stance. And they were like, no, you know what, that's a good idea, but we'll save it for later, okay? But really, I never ever got to do any hard techniques in that movie. I don't think there's as much as one jump, spin, kick, or any really hard technique. But that was a really tough scene to do. It's pretty intricate hand techniques, and they're not happy with you just swinging your arm. The whole body movement has to. It's like a dance. When I go back, Jackie comes in. When Jackie comes in, I go back. Action! There was actually one point in the choreography where Jackie got it wrong, and I clocked him. I hit him with a left hook in the face, and I was like, I'm gonna get fired. I'd actually heard a Westerner had been fired for hitting Jackie once before, so I was really worried at that point that I might be off the show. But it was very intricate, and the timing was, had to be very special. After he threw a punch, he was supposed to go back while I throw a punch, but he threw a punch, then he came in with another, and I clocked him accidentally, and I was really worried. The last thing I wanted to do was hit Jackie Chan. When I saw the scene, I was shocked because, once again, I thought it was like a serious fight scene, and then you hear the music that they put to it. It's like Keystone Cops. There was a lot of laughing going on the set on that day. I really enjoyed working with Jackie on that scene because it was funny. I mean, there's a scene right at the beginning when I'm fighting Jackie and he's playing E Honda and I'm playing Ken, and we actually shot the whole movie, the whole scene at like 10 frames per second, which really speeds it up because they wanted it to actually look like the moves from the video game. So we were doing these repetitive moves, just like going you know, like a robot, like the video game characters, and we were just non-stop laughing. It was so hard to get takes done because I was laughing, Jackie was laughing, Jigo, the cameraman, was laughing. It was just a really funny scene to shoot. I mean, it's so off the wall. How do you prepare to shoot a scene like that? Their imagination, the Chinese, is unbelievable. But once again, it was tough when we opened up the scene, and I'm doing real basic fighting with Jackie. I don't think I ever did anything really hard in that movie, technique-wise, choreography-wise. But the big thing about the Chinese is the rhythm. You have to get their rhythm down. And you think you're doing it right, you know, and you're just not getting the same timing and the same rhythm as them sometimes. So once again, it was a matter of doing stuff over and over and over and over again until you get it right in their eyes to get what they want. And sometimes you can start feeling in your mind like, what is wrong with me? I'm not good enough. I'm this, I'm that, because you have to do it so many times. And I had to battle that in myself. I was like, I can't let myself get down. I'm in Hong Kong working with Jackie Chan. I can't let myself get down because I feel like I'm not doing it properly. But the opening of that scene before I throw him into the video game, we did many takes on that. It was really hard getting their timing down. But no, it was a lot of fun doing that scene. And when I saw it, the couple of times I've seen the movie in the theatre, that is the scene that people have responded to the most. And when I was recognised in Hong Kong after the movie, it was recognised from that scene. In Hong Kong, you have these tea ladies that bring around tea and iced coffee all the time. So I normally don't drink coffee at all. But I don't drink dairy products in my diet. But over there, you kind of take what you can get. And so we drink this iced coffee. And it would be very creamy. And then they'd put me on this metal contraption with a stand, which would keep this leg straight, and then another piece of metal going up, like strapped to the inside of my leg to keep my leg straight so I could spin round and round. And after drinking that iced coffee, I have to go round and round, maybe off the set, going, puking up. So. You know, people like to ask you, what is your favourite Jackie Chan movie? And how can you say it? There's just so many good movies. I mean, the fact that he can churn out good movie after good movie with original choreography after original choreography, it's amazing. I mean, I've done quite a few movies, and to try and come up with original choreography is so hard. So I had total respect for those guys. Total respect.
Working with Jackie Chan for the first time was on the film City Hunter. A phenomenal experience, no less confusing, I might add, because the same thing existed where, you know, they're pretty much winging it as they go. But, you know, you're working with a maestro of martial art action movies, there's no question. And to get invited to do that was a big thrill for me, and it really was. And we're in Tokyo, and we did all the exterior shots on this cruise liner that you know, sailed all around Tokyo Harbor. We did, and then the interiors were done back on sets in Kowloon. And to work with Jackie and see really up hand, of course, you know, having worked on Twinkle Twinkle, I knew his level of excellence and the excellence he demanded of anyone around him. I mean, little fights I did, even that was an experience. But to work with him on City Hunter and do a fight that took 6 weeks to shoot, I really appreciated why his fights look as phenomenal as they do, because he will not accept anything less than perfection as far as perfection can be achieved. With the choreography, with the amount of takes it'll take to get a shot. I mean, 3 or 4 moves, as I said, may take 2 days, 3 days to shoot, if he feels that's how long it's going to take to make it right. And to see firsthand his athletic prowess, the creativity and the choreography, I mean, it's an eye-opener. It's something you'll never see in the States because, as you know, even on big movies, to shoot a fight scene, admittedly it was a long fight, nearly 6 minutes long, but they'd still only shoot that in a matter of days. I mean, this was 6 weeks because he knows that's what his audience want to see. So it was a treat, but difficult. I mean, to say it was fun during the shoot, you know, I'd be lying, because it's just hard work. Because you're doing their choreography with their time, with their techniques, and you're doing it so many times, and you're working 18-hour days and often 7 days a week. I mean, that's tough. Very demanding, but I tell you the other thing, when I got back to America after those shoots, like a cakewalk, you know, compared to that, the way it sets you up, I mean, you just know what work is. But again, I want to emphasize, to work with someone like Jackie Chan on that sort of a movie, again, you're working with the maestro of martial art action movies, and just an absolute thrill. My character in City Hunter was the first time I actually got to play a character with Jackie, where I have a name and a character and a through line all the way through, and his name was Colonel Donald Mack. And basically I'm like a terrorist, you know, it's almost like Die Hard on a ship, where myself and my boys infiltrate, get on board the ship, take over, and end up sort of knocking a few people off, as it were, and having a bit of fun, and Jackie ends up sort of taking us all out. But fun character, again, my hair's slicked back, you know, I'm in a dinner suit, I'm a bit of a card sharp. Funny scene where I get all the people on board, I ask them who can play cards, you know, and there's a scene where I'm playing cards and they've got this whole line of like 20, 30, 40 people waiting to play, but as they lose, I say, oh, sorry, pull out a gun and shoot them, which I thought was, again, very typical of the humor in those sorts of movies and very funny. But again, it was fun. Fun to be a character, fun to be one of the main characters, and of course to have as a character through line through the whole movie. You find when you do a Hong Kong movie is they literally have no script. They write the script day by day as they go, which means as an actor, I have no idea what I'm going to do tomorrow or the next day or whatever, and they don't even know, which again makes it very spontaneous. In some ways for an actor it's kind of okay, because I go on, I've got no stress of learning lines and trying to learn paragraphs of pages. Of course I do have to learn them on the spot then, and pretty much they'll just do it over and over until you get it right. A lot of times you'll just imitate what the director wants, whether it's Jackie or Sam, to the point of imitating facial expressions, because they've got a very clear picture about what they want and what works for them in their movies. And that's the other thing, going back to fighting too, is that you're really not there to give input on a fight. It's about what they want, because again, they're the best at what they do with Hong Kong style action, which has been proven with today's movies. So you're really there to do what you're told. And Kurata, Shoji Kurata, was a pretty famous Japanese actor that did 40 plus Hong Kong movies. He was the first one to tell me that if you want to work here, don't say anything, do whatever it is they want you to do as many times as it takes. And that would often be a minimum of 30 takes per setup, which is very exhausting. But when they choreograph it, they figure if you do it long enough, you'll eventually get it. And it's their way. And if you go there, you got to realize you're on their set, and they do it best. They absolutely do it best. They're the most creative in a way of humor, in a way of wire gags, in a way of doing stuff that you would never normally do, which is why it's so much fun to do a movie with Jackie Chan. Because at the time you might be going, oh, am I really going to do this? But you know when you see the end result, you're going to be Richard Norton doing stuff that you would never ever see yourself doing in any sort of Western movie. And I think that's a lot of fun. Wong Jing was directing, I would say, the drama, and Jackie was directing the action. Wong Jing, of course, he's very humorous guy. He's into comedy and everything else. Very, very creative, and still to this day. In fact, you know, working on City Hunter came as a result, of course, you know, Jackie knowing my work, and of course Wong Jing knowing my work after Magic Crystal, which is the film that he directed. My funny recollection of Wong Jing, again, and the style of Hong Kong movies, is being in the makeup every day and having this guy lying on one of those banana lounges, you know, like you'd lay out in the sun by the swimming pool. In the corner of the makeup lounge, he's Wong Jing cracking up because he's writing that day's script and the funny gags that he wants to shoot. And then he'd give them to somebody and they'd take them on the set. He often wouldn't even go on the set, and somebody else would just shoot them. And I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was just so typical of Hong Kong movie making. But that's the way they would do it, just scene by scene by scene as they saw fit, and make it all work. Again, when it got down to the action, of course, that, you know, which again is very much Hong Kong style. It's got to be more of the style in the States now, but you always have two directors. You'll have an action director and you will have a dramatic director. So Wong Jing was there for the dialogue, the humor, and all of that sort of stuff. He would leave whenever the action started, and Jackie and his stunt boys would take over, and that's the way it worked. I've had the first-hand experience because I've got to do a number of fight scenes with Jackie now, and he's nothing short of phenomenal. The thing that sets people like Jackie and again Sammo Hung and people like that aside is that they're versed in just about every form of martial art. I can't think of a fight that they're not able to put together. And so with Jackie, you know, and his speed, his agility, the fact that he is such an incredible acrobat, along with the training he's had in different, you know, Chinese martial arts, makes him a phenomenal practitioner. And I think that's obvious with his film, you know. You know, the one thing that Jackie demands is timing, which is something that he has, you know, second to none. So to be able to do fights with Jackie, it's all about timing. You know, it's not about being a good kicker, good puncher. He won't use you unless you have the timing that will work for him and with his type of choreography. And so you put all those things together, you put his incredible physical condition, his acrobatics, you know, the way he moves, you know, with his martial arts and the traditional martial arts all mixed in, it just makes up one explosive package. In America, meaning if I was going to do a fight scene, I'd pretty much choreograph the fight from start to end. You'd do a master shot, you know, a wide shot, so the editors know what's going on, everybody knows what's going on, and then you go and do your coverage. But it doesn't happen in Hong Kong. They don't know what they're going to do after the first, say, 3 moves. So it's done purely as you go. So if I'm doing a fight scene with Jackie, for instance, I have no idea how long it's going to be and which direction it's going to go. And that's one of the big differences, which is kind of interesting because in some ways it makes them very spontaneous. Because they put the emphasis on a fight. If you're doing an action movie, they may spend weeks doing a fight. Like City Hunter, you know, 6 weeks it took me to do the fight with Jackie. They'll go in and watch the dailies and they'll decide whether the fight needs more action, needs to be longer, needs to be shorter, or if some particular technique was no good, and they'll go and shoot accordingly. But it also means that they're open to take the fight in whichever direction they want to go, make it more violent, make it more humorous or whatever, without being locked into that so-called master shot, which is pretty interesting. And the other big difference, of course, is contact. Depending on the movie in Hong Kong, there is a lot of physical contact. I mean, they want to see bodies fold, and you've got to be in good shape to be able to take that. It's not for wimps, that's for sure. Whereas in America, you know, it's all about the illusion of camera. You know, if you're going to be hitting me in the body, it'll be stopped just on my body and I'll react, let some air out in with the right sound effect in. You'll never know that I wasn't hit. Hong Kong, they want you to be actually hit, so it's almost like a real sort of reaction. The Jackie Chan stunt team is very important, the Jackie Chan style of fight. He is still a leader though. I mean, they will still all wait for Jackie to come up with the ideas, and of course they will be there to add input and to tweak it a little bit. And more importantly, they're the ones that will rehearse it with the actors. They're the ones that will kind of refine it a lot, you know, rehearse for camera. And let's say for someone like me, you know, he will work out what he wants. They're the ones that will teach it to me. I'll work with them to get it down pat. And every time you see background to the major fight, it's going to be his stunt people. And the reason for that is that he knows them back to front, they know him back to front, they know his timing, he trusts them, which is very important. Because the problem with getting some, say, kickboxer out of America is he doesn't want to be smacked in the nose and have his nose broken because somebody's there trying to show how tough they are, you know? Which is again why they're very selective about who they will use, you know? And you know, he knew I had very good control and everything else and would look after him in fight scenes, and obviously I was expecting the same back. But his stunt, they're the support unit. You know, they're the ones that always fill in the background, do the stunts, and especially whenever there's doubles, they're the ones that'll double and do the fight with him for the reasons of knowing each other so well. And of course, they're trained by Jackie. The scene where I lose the dinner jacket and reveal the sticks and end up in my shirt, it was fun. And I remember when Jackie first showed me what he wanted, I thought, oh my goodness, you know, that's kind of difficult move. But, you know, I appreciated it. He said, look, I really want you to look good, which, you know, which was great. Like he had that concern that for me as Richard Norton in his film, he wanted me to look good, let alone for the movie itself. And so that alone gave me the sort of zeal to really work hard on, you know, rehearsing that bit of action. But a lot of it's technique, you know. If I was to look at that and work out how to do it, watching the film would be difficult. But of course, that's what they do best, you know. They'll show you how to do it. They'll let you rehearse it as many times as it will take and shoot it as many times as it takes to get it right, and away you go. You know, of course, what the audience sees looks like it was done in one take, but far from the truth. Using double sticks in City Hunter was an experience. Now, I have had some training in Eskrima and Anis, but the whole idea of that character was not to be technically amazing. They gave me the double sticks, and if you see some of the scenes, even I still crack up laughing because I look like the mad professor. There's scenes where I'm just hitting him probably hundreds of times with these sticks. So it was meant to be, again, a lot of fun, a little cartoonish as opposed to being very strict, like martial art form, you know, if that makes sense. But, I mean, that fight, as I said, I still look at that and I think the amount of time it took to shoot and how funny it is and the amount of work that went into it was good. You know, and you also notice, by the way, that, you know, some of it, there's doubles being used in the fight. That also is very much Hong Kong style. And in fact, a lot of that's due to the fact that local stunt guys, that's how they really make money, is when they double one of us Western actors, one of us guilos. It's not, and I'm not defending, you know, having had a double, you know, it's really, that's the reason they use them, which was fine with me. You know, just about any Western actor or even Hong Kong actor will still have doubles at some stage. And that's a reason for that. But why I bring that up was funny, when I first had my double walk out, I had quite blonde hair, of course, and he's got his black hair, being Chinese, with a little bit of silver paint sprayed in the back. Okay, he's ready. I'm like, wait a minute. But you know what, with the fast cutting and everything else, it's often hard to notice. I really liked City Hunter. Now I know, as far as Jackie Chan, like diehards, some were a little disappointed because they felt it wasn't like a normal Jackie Chan movie. But I think the whole idea was to make it even appeal to a younger age than he would normally appeal to. The type of humor and the way it was set up was not as hardcore as a lot of his other movies because, you know, as we know, it was based on a Japanese comic book character. A lot of that direction, of course, was decided by Wong Jing. And a lot of people, again, thought, well, it wasn't like, whatever that means, a normal Jackie Chan movie, but I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was so tongue-in-cheek and so different that I was on the floor, and I took a couple of friends of mine in the film biz, you know, that never really seen a Hong Kong movie, and they just thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. So yeah, I loved it. I just thought it was great.